Okay. Hello, everyone. You're welcome to Geopolitical Blog, where we talk everything about politics, governance, democracy as it affects Nigeria, Africa, and across the globe. And you know how we do it here. We always talk about how to make our country even better. So we talk about issues that has to do with how Nigerian politics has been faring, and to talk about analyze issues that has to do with how Nigeria is where it is today. And it's no longer news that Nigeria is a country so blessed with enormous resources, but the news here is over the years we've not been able to maximize these resources vis-a-vis the democracy that we practice to to make the country a prosperous one. They've said over time, people have said over time that Nigeria is a poor country, but some have argued that Nigeria is not poor given its enormous resources, that Nigeria is only poor in leadership. And that brings us to our focus today: leadership. How are leaders recruited in Nigeria? Nigeria is a democratic country. This is the Fourth Republic. We returned to democracy since 1999. So we've had a smooth sail of democracy, periodic elections, and different leaders that were recruited at the local government, state government, and the federal government level. But the fact remains is what, how, what and how is the Nigerian recruitment process? What is responsible for the type of leaders that we've had over the years? Because there's a saying that the nature of a country or the direction of a country, is tied extensively to the kind of leaders that these countries have. And Nigeria also falls within that equation because we've seen over time where leaders leave office and the ones, their successors are people who take over, people will now wish that the person who just left office or the predecessors are the ones who are there. So that means we've not really had it good when it comes to leadership as far as Nigeria is concerned. And that's our primary focus of discussion today. How are leaders recruitment? And in Nigeria, the vehicle upon which people present their resumes, present their manifesto, is the political party. So, what role is the political party playing in this recruitment process in Nigeria? Now, who are the recruiters in Nigeria? The people who go to the ballot every 4 years or every 3, 4 years, every election cycle to vote. And how come the people have not really had the opportunity to recruit leaders who will emancipate Nigeria from poverty, the leaders who will emancipate Nigeria from economic woes, especially what we currently face? They've said corruption is one of the biggest challenges of Nigeria. And oftentimes we say the people who have held office at all levels are the ones who have perpetrated one form of corruption, maladministration, or misappropriation of funds. So how come all these years we've not learned our lesson and on how to recruit leaders that will be emphatic, leader that will show empathy, leader that will show capacity, and will take Nigeria to be at par with some other countries that probably do not even have the kind of resources that Nigeria has? I'm supposed to have two guests with me to talk about the political parties as the driver or the seat upon which people seek elections or re-election. We'll be talking about how political parties influences recruitment process and why Nigeria is yet to get it right as far as leadership recruitment is concerned. So those are the questions that we'll be talking about. We'll be analyzing issues as it reflects um, leadership recruitment in Nigeria. I'm supposed to have two guests with me, but unfortunately, due to one reason or the other, I only have one of my guests with me so we can do justice to these issues, talk about leadership recruitment in Nigeria. Now, this leadership recruitment discourse is very, very important at this time, considering that Nigerians or Nigeria, the Nigerian political space, is warming up to an election in few months, and that is where um, we'll be recruiting new leaders that will be in charge of Nigeria's affairs within the next 4 years. So I have an erudite scholar here with me, a man that I choose to call a mobile library, a man I used to call a human encyclopedia, a man I want to call um, a basket full of knowledge. He was my secondary school teacher and he taught me sciences, but all of a sudden, due to the vast knowledge of this gentleman, he's now an assistant professor in international relations. So, ladies and gentlemen, introduce to you Dr. Abdulkadir Inoa Abdulkadir. You're welcome to Geopolitical Blog, sir.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Nigeria's leadership recruitment process since 1999. Where have we gotten it wrong? Can you give us an overview of what your perception about Nigeria's leadership recruitment process and leaders we've had over time vis-a-vis the state of Nigeria at the moment?
Good. Thank you very much. Going through the political parties, party politics, and the recruitment processes and the leadership, one can say that if we are to look and do justice to this, we'll go through the historical inertia, which starts from the very moment we got independent. At
Okay.
the eve of independence, a lot of waters are passed through before arriving at the motion that necessitated our independence, our detachment from the colonial powers. From the eve, we know that a lot has to be done to get it right. First, there is this tripod system of northern, western, and eastern arrangement, each region having its own kind of ideology, its perception about what is to be with the way the country is. For NPC to Action Group to NCNC. These political parties, associations, they have different kinds of political ideologies which reflect the type of persons they are. To be fair to them, these leaders were lucky at that time. They came with kind of a zeal to take independence and make sure that the self-rule was worth it. So, if I give an example, the NPC, which happens to form the government at the center, had two major leaders, Sir Ahmadu Bello and Tafawa Balewa, who happens to become prime minister at the point when it was an opportunity for Sandona to be able to take over because he was the leader of the party. He preferred to remain as the premier of northern Nigeria with headquarters in Kaduna and then allow Tafawa Balewa. This is selflessness epitomized. If you go to the west, this side, the wild west of historical connection, we know Saitin Tola and Chief Obafemi Awolowo have played the politics of development. They choose the leadership, they choose the processes in other things. The first developmental strides that were put in place in Western Nigeria was courtesy of the party politics that played out. They have a manifesto that they play to it. No matter who is at the driver's seat, they keep to it. We had the first university, we had the first radio station, and the rest. And of course, the policy of free education. So, at that level, before the coup d'etat, the development was going steadily, each going at its own pace, with their leaders each taking, every segment that it connotes the, the regional system that we had. What really happened on the 15th January 1966 created another watershed. Our hard-earned independence and our pioneer republics were cut short after 6 years. Then we had military regimes that inculcate the kind of regimental system all through from 1966. We never had any sense and closeness of democratic uh, environment until around the period when.
Oh, so sorry about that. We seem to be having network challenges on the part of my guest. Hopefully, we'll be back to have this discussion. But you can leave your comments if you have questions you want to ask. You can drop your questions, and my guests will be more than happy to have just questions answered. And your questions should be about leadership process in Nigeria, where we have gotten it wrong. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you very much. So, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, then a general, continued the transition program that saw to the election of the first executive president, whose political party passed through thick and thin to elect him as a standard bearer. Don't forget, all those political actors from the First Republic to the Second Republic, they were people, particularly in the northern Nigeria, who have not maybe a quantum of education that we expect, maybe great. They have what it takes. They may be grade two teachers, but they have the wherewithal to see what they do. So, in all fairness, First Republic, Second Republic, recruitment process of standard bearers reflected the kinds of persons and personalities that are involved in party politics. There are political ideologies. There are people who stand by their ideologies. We have seen situations whereby certain political parties in the Second Republic stood their ground based on principle and ideology. In fact, one of the governors of blessed memory, Alhaji Balarabe Musa of Kaduna State, all from Kaduna State, he was elected in public PRP, which is a party then, in a house that is dominated by NPN. They tried to see how they can change the course of governance. But because of his principles, because of his ideology, because of standing on the manifesto, he risked it to the point that he was the first person to be impeached as far as history of governance is concerned in Nigeria. He was impeached on the first one. He can simply cross carpet like we are seeing today and go to the dominant party. But he remained in the party because of party ideology. Going to Kano, Rimi and his subordinates also had similar issues. He risked it. The party has to change him and brought in another candidate similarly in that time that was looked as if he is not competent to take the seat. But this is because there was party politics. Mala Amini Kano of PRP, the same party of their political ideology, people pay money to go and see their campaign.
Another network issues there. So when my guest returns, I see he's having network issues. Our next line of discussion, as far as leadership recruitment process is concerned in Nigeria, will revolve around ethnicity and religion, because those are the two main factors. Okay, welcome back, sir. So I was going to ask this question to charge up our discussion this evening. You see, the people, the citizens of Nigeria, they are the ones responsible for recruiting leaders over the years, and they do this through the ballot every 4 years for the presidential, state assembly, and for local government every 3 years. So over the years, we've seen political parties, they have maintained regional, let's say regional operations as far as Nigeria is concerned. You know, in those days, when Nigeria started, we used to have the PDP, the ANPP, and the rest of them. And these political parties, we were told, have national outlook. But over time, we've seen internal wranglings in these parties, and it all boils down on religion and ethnicity, even within the political parties. So how is that? Because we have to talk about that first before before we come to the area where the people who are charged with the constitutional responsibility of recruiting leaders through the ballot. And they have also considered ethnicity and religion. We will talk about that later on vis-a-vis leadership failure. But let's talk about a political party that's supposed to have national outlook. That means it's supposed to accommodate the multi-ethnicity and religious nature of Nigerian state. And they still have internal wranglings along this line. What do you make of all of this? And how has that affected people who later become flag bearers of these political parties?
All right. Thank you very much. Just like I was trying to go through historical antecedents that brought us to where we are. Remember, I said we operated on a tripod system: the West,
Mm-hmm.
the East, and the North. This also continued to reflect in our party structure. The parties that we inherited or that we became the first parties in the First Republic also reflected ethno-religious inclinations, with with the center determining who comes in. Like I gave an example, when Tafawa Balewa was to become the prime minister, he had to go to the center, which is Lagos, which becomes the headquarters of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and take the mantle of leadership. While others remain as premiers because we operate a regional system. So we inherited that same system until the coup d'etat. After the coup d'etat, we had military experience until the period when transition came back. We had the first presidential executive government, which Shagari came in. NPN, which supposed to be the government that was elected, suffered serious challenges, especially when there were contemplation as to what constitutes two-thirds. The numbers that constitute two-thirds were debated. It took serious effort to see to down the tension before the continuation of whatever. So, ethno-religious inclinations has been the bedrock of our own party politics and even our general elections. So, with that moment, after the various incursions of the various political parties that came, remember, there is no one political party at that time that can be able to form the government at the center until there is an alliance. This is to tell you
Absolutely.
that there is no part of the country that must be left behind. For a party to become really national and with outlook, it has to have cut across all these segments. This is true. Whatever, whether ethno-religious or tribal or regional inclination, there is no party what its onion and salt can be able to form a party at the center. So NPN tried its own. It went into alliances and counter alliances here and there in order to make sure that it has a majority that reflects on our constitutional requirement for two-thirds component that constitutes the number of states that this covers to make sure that the government at the center reflects that constitutionally. So from that on, we had both third republic. We have seen how June 12 played out, even though so many pundits has it that June 12 was one of the most credible elections where two political parties, even though they were bankrolled by the government of General IBB in terms of setting and structure. The very first time we have that kind of FNA4 and then moving to that structure. The SDP that brought MK Abiola, who sold it out with NRC, Bashir Tofa, we can say it was at that moment that we saw a departure where even in Kano, where Otman Tofa held from, was roundly defeated by MK Abiola. That was a reflection of a debacle of the ethnic and religious policy that we had. That was the time we also had two tickets being championed by two Muslims, MK Abiola, Odman Tofa. But people went out en masse. 14 million votes were counted before the annulment. And MK Abiola was costing to victory when the powers that be decided that the election should be annulled. After that, we've seen a reflection of where the military came in to see how they get it right. Fast forward to 1999, we had a situation whereby we have a pariah state. The government that was in place was unpopular. That was the government of General Abacha. There was a pariah status. We were isolated. We were suspended from Cromwell. So at that time, we had to get it right. So the establishment in court decided that we should get a candidate, whether we elect it or not, that will pursue the situation to get everybody to have this inclusivity. The Southwest felt that the opportunity to present their candidates was bought, and it is a high time for them to be assured. Chief Obasanjo, who was barely out of jail, was brought in. A political party was set up, PDP, and in all sense of commitment, PDP at that time reflected a national structure that cut across, particularly when the establishment felt that they need to get a candidate that will be able to cut across this segment. The choice of Chief Obasanjo was not a misplaced one. He was a former leader. He has a credential for railroading a transition to democracy. He has also a credential of even giving the baton to a leader who is not from his segment. Shehu Usman Shagari was a northerner for NPN. His brother, who happens to be Chief Obafemi Olo, in another opposition party, who struggled, who tried sentimentally to see whether that can be changed. But the firmness of the leader at that time and the need to ensure that we have credible elections that can be acceptable. They stood their ground and they gave to the NPN and went through first tenure and then he barely came in for second tenure when there was another coup d'etat. So you can see there was a reflection at some point where ethnic politics, regionalism, sentiments come in, but at some times we weather the storm. So when we move on from that 1999, it will be interesting to know that Obasanjo got overwhelming votes from northern Nigeria when he was juggling out with Olufalaye. The vote came from northern Nigeria. This was a reflection, a departure of the past, where you have regional politics playing out, determining candidates to come in. But this time around, the votes that gave the victory to PDP through Chief Obasanjo's ticket was coming from the northern Nigeria. The votes that came from what went to a
Oh my God. So sorry, viewers. We seem to be having connection problem with our guest from Kano. Please, you can always, if you have any question or you want to make any contribution, you can just drop a comment. You can drop a comment right here, and rest assured, I'll read out your comment. And if you have a question for our professor, please, you can drop your comments, and you can also please like and share so other people will join the discourse about political parties and party leadership recruitment process in Nigeria, especially now that we're in an election year and very soon Nigeria will be going to the ballot to do another round of recruitment of the next round of leaders. Thank you so much, Professor. Welcome back. So you can continue your thoughts, sir.
Thank you. Very good. So by that 1999, the party primaries of PDP that took place in Jos, when you look at the candidates of the various parties, it was a reflection of what Nigeria really wants at that time. And at the end of it all, when PDP was elected, uh, going with his running mate, who happens to be Alhaji Atiku Abubakar from Northeast, Southwest President, Northeast Vice President. Now, one thing that plays out from that 1999 till date is a party politics of balancing portfolios. Appointments are a reflection of the so-called federal character. Why are we having the federal character? We have a very complex entity where if you don't put that into consideration, you are likely to have disenchantment. Some people will cry of marginalization. Some will say they will call it all sorts of names. So you may even get distracted of governance. So to do that, we had a federal character commission and all other interventions and constitutional or unconstitutional matters of making sure that elections are done, portfolio sharing are also done in a manner that all the segments and areas of interest are covered. So we have seen that Chief Obasanjo's regime or government was a reflection of how best he can be able to put together all these differential cleavages. He set up a cabinet that has a reflection of some semblance of collectivity. Technocrats and all of them were also involved. Without missing words, having been someone who has seen the different kinds of government, it is my opinion that Obasanjo's government remain one of the most organized government that has reflection and thinking of our sensibilities. You may accuse him of others, but you cannot accuse him of sentimental appointment. If you go through his appointment, you discover that he takes technocrats, he takes merit and others in order to make it on. And all these years, from his first tenure to his second tenure, we have seen a reflection of that. One of our major strides and achievements was the exit from the debt. And he was able to achieve that through a kind of teamwork. He brought in a very important personality who has an experience in governance and international sphere, Dr. Ngozi. She helped to midwife the process of debt relief. Even though Nigeria was not a HIPC, highly indebted poor country, they went through thick and thin to see that we exited. That was able to make sure that government has funds to continue to do governance. You may accuse him of spending 16 billion for power. You might accuse him of maybe Zaki EBN. You might accuse him of whatever, Odi. You can accuse him of third-time boss. But these are all undercurrents that happened. He was in full grasp of the government. In terms of party structure, you might accuse him of changing political chairman or chairman of their party. It was just to show you how it is. He was dining and enjoying his meal with his party chairman. The next moment he asked him to resign. This is how he took care of the party. He makes sure that the party is in line with the manifesto of what he's doing. No chairman should speak outside the government. It's a reflection of how total system it is. It may look dictatorial, but I think the system in Nigeria requires a leader who is assertive and firm to take charge of things. And so,
Okay.
from that moment, we have seen how the elections brought in another party chairman or another party man.
Thank you.
Even though, yes, even though when Eradua was nominated as a flag bearer, a lot of people were surprised. But the leader of the party, who happens to be the president, told us the reason why he felt his successor should be Eradua. Other colleagues, governors were surprised because he was very unpopular. In fact, they were even saying, asking the phone number of this governor at the cabinet meeting. Many do not have because he doesn't go to Abuja. But what speaks for him was that at the eve of the end of his tenure after 8 years, he left behind 13 billion on the coffers. This is an unheard of. Many will rush to go and empty the treasury as they are exiting. But he left behind 13. He was unassuming, he was a gentleman who was ready to do the work, and he was not that goes to Abuja every now and then. He stays back and do the work. The project he left behind in the state, speak for them. Perhaps this explains why the president decided he should bring him to the center, see what he can do. Unfortunately, health
Okay.
challenge brought again.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for giving us a chronicle of leaders we've had since 1999 when Nigeria returned to democracy. But there's this something I find a bit very worrisome. Last week, Saturday, a governorship election was held in Ekiti State, and everyone, were looking forward to some people were optimistic that we might have a new line of since we have a new chairman at INEC, that the elections will not go the same way elections have always gone in Nigeria. At the end of the elections, I tried to read different reports. I read different reports from different observers, preliminary reports, that the election was marred with so much vote buying. And true to that, we saw a lot of people coming up online to say, oh, I sold my vote for 5,000 naira. I sold my vote for 10,000 naira. Some said for 15,000 naira. And we saw before the elections, the APC were going about the towns of Ekiti distributing bread to people. Now, this is no doubt voters' inducement. And the Electoral Act frowns against voters' inducement in any form. But we've seen that happen unabated, unchallenged in Ekiti State. Now, given what we saw last week in Ekiti State, what I will call the commercialization of the electoral process, the commercialization of democracy, are you worried about what we saw in Ekiti State? Because very soon there will be another election in Osun State. So it is safe to assume that what we saw happen in Ekiti State might happen in Osun State, by and large, might happen in January in Nigeria. So are you worried about how leaders are recruited in Nigeria, especially as it has to do with voters' inducement and the commercialization of the entire electoral process?
I'm very much worried as a Nigerian, as a citizen who wants to see a Nigeria that works for all of us. What has been observed is that most of the off-season elections are always been characterized. You can even sit in your bedroom or sitting room and even predict the outcome, largely because so many factors played in. There is this tendency of federal might. The ruling party at the center will put all paraphernalia of forces and determine the direction of the election. And most of the people, because of poverty, because of so many disenchantments, they can easily be lured. They can be bored. There are very people that have conscience. It is just immediate gratification. They want the next meal. So therefore, the politicians have key in and taken advantage of these vulnerabilities, and everyone seems to have a price. Some prices are even not worth caring. You cannot imagine a packet of spaghetti can can make me vote someone. This brings us to the tendencies of allies to create this situation. Statistics from INEC shows that the number of people who have voters cards and those who are voting power will give you a wide gap. It has been observed. The allies only speak on the social media, complain, but they don't go out to vote. Voter apathy has increased. Statistics have shown from 49% 2023, sorry, 2019 to 23.6% 2023.
That's
This
appalling.
is the low. This was the lowest voter turnout we have seen in recent history. That means only 23 or 26% voters actually returned this government. How many are we? 232 million. How many of them get votes? How many of them go out there to retrieve their voter card? We are very good at analysis. We have very much people who analyze. The allies are very good in analysis, but they don't all go there. They always go there,
You
and
see,
whenever the reflections of the actual come, they now take the time. They give you all theories. They give you all sorts of things, armchair analysis. But in the end, they don't do anything to change it. So as long as we always the allies remain at the armchair and then thinking that it is the other guys that go out there, the vulnerable are easily you can vote them because they are already poor, they are tired, they don't even have resources. So a little thing, 5,000 naira can buy somebody. Somebody thinks he doesn't wait for you to go there and get the dividend. He doesn't want constituencies, projects to reach him yet. He wants it now and now and now. And because he doesn't know what is the next meal, once you offer to give him, he can easily sell his vote.
yes,
He doesn't care.
yeah,
Tell him promising anything heaven
mhm.
right now, and is satisfied. So it is worrisome. It's very, very worrisome that we are having this situation at this mortal time, and that this is a reflection of how bad we have done. Voters turnout is very poor. Those who out there to go to vote are not those who even know their conscience. They don't know what is happening. They don't know merit or demerit of a leadership. They don't know what is there. All they know is that once you tell them sweet things about dividends and whatever, they feel you earn their votes. More so, if you can give them 1,000 naira, they can easily sell their conscience and then take the next one. Then vote buying and even comprinting and voter snatching and whatever has become the order of the day. So, by and large, most of our elections, they are nothing but short of credibility because so many factors are coming in. Very few people go out to vote by their conscience, getting the card by themselves, doing it as a civic responsibility. They are doing it because they just have to go there. Those who are into party politics, they do so during the delegate. They get paid. Not that because they feel they get the right candidate. After they get paid,
It's
the highest bidder gets the standard bearer of a political party. We have seen it played out in 1999. We have seen it played out in 2000. Almost all. There are tendencies to see very few, very few candidates went there by matter of their integrity. Maybe we can give it to Muhammad Bahadi, who went there, but we were also told that at the eve of that primary, there was confusion. He made a very
absolutely.
profound statement. I do not have dollars to give you. What I have is I want to offer myself for service. His components and opponents have money. It takes an intervention that will make it possible for him to take that. Otherwise, even if he remains and continue to preach about service, people will only look at him. So it's a combination of so many things that makes him to split the party ticket during that primary. So it goes on and on similarly. So like I said, godfatherism, money bags, and just the owners establishment determines who takes the party to hell. And we have seen that played out in this primary from across the state. Today, we are seeing even prominent names springing out like a perpetuation of a generation. We have seen names of former presidents, former what, some tycoons in some states, deciding that they want to also go in and join. We have seen some putting their sons, some putting their in-laws. Nobody cares about merit again. Everybody wants to see who comes to the table, who can
Absolutely.
dictate,
It's
who can also
and
control. So nobody wants to see merit. Merit doesn't play again.
it's
So these
and
are
that
the
is
challenges we are facing.
and that is really a big problem when merit has now been thrown out to the dogs, when political parties now practice on ideological politics, and it's all about politics, about state capture, power and power capture.
Yes.
What they do with this power is not really about the people anymore. It is now about personal aggrandizement, ethnic, aggrandizement, and we've seen so far, even the leaders that we've had over time in Nigeria, they've in no small measures promoted prebendalism in Nigeria. In fact, Nigeria is now at an all-time high when it comes to the polarization. It has not become too evident that Nigeria is a plural state, polarized along religious and ethnic lines. Nobody even cares about having people with capacity. Nigerians are now just more interested in having people who speak the same language they speak in terms of tribe. Nigerians are now just more interested about people who have the same religious affiliation like they do. They do not care about the soul of Nigeria. And that is why Nigeria has deteriorated so much to this extent. Prof, I would like to recommend this book to you. It is called Nigeria, What Everybody Needs to Know. The book was published by two Oxford scholars in 2018. So it's a very recent book. And it speaks volume about the contemporary Nigeria and how this ethnicity and religion and lack of capacity of our leaders has eaten deep into the fabric of the Nigerian state, and that Nigeria has become what it is today because of even the people, the Nigerian people itself. Because the elites that we have in Nigeria today, they watch social media, they see some of the narratives being peddled by a lot of Nigerians, and this has emboldened them so much that they have now seen over time that delivering the dividends of democracy, of giving purposeful leadership, is no longer the order of the day. People are only just more interested, in who is at the ends of affair. They don't care if this man has capacity or not. As long as he speaks my dialect, he speaks my language, is from my ethnic background, nobody cares. So this book, I will really recommend this book for you. If there's a way, I will pass it across to you, so you can see Nigeria, what everyone needs to know. It is so very rich. It will give you an insight about the contemporary Nigeria, especially in the Fourth Republic that we find ourselves today.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes,
sir.
Yes, I assure you, it is worth your time. You're going to really enjoy it. It's very educative, and it's very it's research field with a lot of raw data collected from the field, in the book. So I want to really thank you, sir, for yes, I want to really thank you, sir, for your time today. I'm sure our viewers have really learned a lot, especially since you did a chronicle of Nigeria's leadership that we've seen from 1999 until date, and how ethnicity and religion plays a role in leadership recruitment in Nigeria, and also your analysis about the money bags, godfatherism, commercialization of Nigerian democracy, and where we find ourselves today, and hopefully, and your take about the election of last week in Ekiti, and how worried you are about the state of affairs in Nigeria. And hopefully we will get it right next year, in January, when Nigerians will have the opportunity again to elect new leaders, and to I hope, because Nigeria is in dire straits at the moment, at all levels. Okay, whether it is economy, whether it is security, whether it is education. The only sector in Nigeria that is very, very fruitful is election INEC, because in situations where in a full budget circle, lucrative or purposeful ministries like education, health, and the rest of them. These are ministries or agencies of government that are, carry the responsibility of building human capacity development. They don't even have funding, but INEC gets 90%, 95% of its funding. And we've seen now that in this 2026 budget, INEC is proposing 1.1 trillion. And yes, and the government released this fund. That should tell you that Nigeria is an enterprise controlled by just a few elites, while the people who have the opportunity of selecting people that will go there. And maybe sometime we will talk about the political economy of elections in Nigeria, because every day, given the neoliberal nature of Nigerian economy, Nigeria makes averagely around 350, 360 billion, or even 400 billion in terms of cash flow on a single day. And you will say because of the election, people should not go out. That is a huge loss for a country. I've had the opportunity of being in some countries, and I've seen elections held even on Sundays on a weekday. It doesn't stop anybody from going out. People go out and they still have at least 98% credible elections. Because Nigerians, INEC will say people should not go out, movement will be restricted, elections will still be flawed, the court will still, at the end of the day, decide leadership. You see, so if we want to talk about the political economy of Nigeria electoral process, maybe that's another topic we can talk about, sir, at your earliest convenience, whatever time is more convenient for you. We can talk about that, sir, if that's okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, viewers. Like I said, this an erudite scholar. He was my secondary school teacher. This is a man that has multiple degrees, and is now assistant professor in international relations. And like I said, it's a human and mobile Wikipedia. Thank you so much, sir, for honoring my invitation to be here. I hope we could do this again with better network. Thank you so much, sir. And to my viewers, I want to really thank you for being part of this program. For those who drop comments, who drop their likes, I want to sincerely thank you. And please share, like, and comment, and also get people to subscribe to Geopolitical Blog, where we talk about politics at Nigerian level, Africa, and across the globe. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.